Okay, well, it is 5 after, so I'm going to go ahead and begin the meeting now, and hopefully everybody can uh, get in and join the meeting as they get here. Want to call the November 8th Community Council Blue Horizons Project Community Council meeting to order. Um, And I would like to start. I know that both Mika and Rocky gave yourselves a introduction, but I'd like to welcome you officially onto the council. But why don't you go ahead and give everybody a minute, um, minute or so about introduction again, now that you're officially on the council. Mika, why don't you start? Or Micah, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. I'm Micah Kraus. I am the founder and principal of Kraus Strategies here in Asheville. I'm an ESG and sustainability communications consultant, and I also do leadership and team coaching as well for the sustainability sector. My background is largely focused on clean energy policy and communications, everything from smart grid, energy efficiency, renewable energy, and a lot of other nerdy electrification terms and electricity pricing, things like that. I worked for Environmental Defense Fund for about a decade. I have an MBA focused on sustainability. I've led global communications and sustainability for Walmart. And then I just finished up leading ESG and sustainability for Golan, which is a global PR firm, working with Fortune 50 companies. And so I'm excited to be a consultant, and that's my kind of bread and butter is communications consulting. But I'm really excited to be here. We've been in Asheville for about a year and a half and just looking to plug into the clean energy community here. So thank you for the opportunity.
Great. Thank you. And Rocky?
Yeah. Hi. Good afternoon. Sorry, I taking this phone call from the car because I had gone to the pharmacy. Turns out flu is pretty tricky this year. My name is Rakesh. I go by Rocky. I'm an electric mobility consultant at Accenture, which is a big technology consulting firm. My background has been like mechanical engineering and focused especially on the automotive industry. I used to work on designing cars, but I moved away to sort of like more big picture questions around what should be the future of mobility and what are the different macro changes that are happening in this industry. So, and specifically, I got into electrification because electric vehicles are another frontier in the automotive industry. In the last 3 years, I have sort of started building my career around this. And currently, I'm working with a car company, with a OEM or original equipment manufacturer, to set up a cloud-based vehicle-to-grid service. So the customers can enroll into this vehicle-to-grid service with the car company, and then they are connected to a utility in their area and some other intermediary players in this ecosystem. They call aggregators. And the idea is that the customers can have a more efficient charging. So they charge during the times when the time of use tariffs are low, as well as they can sell energy from their car to the grid at times of high demand, and sort of overall efficiency and benefits to the end user. So yeah, right now I'm working on that, working across the across industries, so utilities, automotive, and yeah. And I'm excited to be here because sorry, the flu has been
Take your time.
sorry. Yeah, I don't know how, but the flu has been really tricky to me this year. But yeah, as more electric vehicles are sold, especially in our county, sort of looking at it from that perspective. How can we leverage some of these electric vehicles to build a more resilient grid, especially as we move towards 100% renewable energy. So yeah, I'm sorry, happy to be here. I'm sorry about the illness. Thank you.
No worries. Thank you. We're glad you're here. Well, before we look at the minutes, usually at the beginning of the meeting, I do a introduction, just since we don't see each other in person, though we did have an excellent gathering last Wednesday at Highwire. I got to see people whom I've never seen in person before, only virtually. But so it is November, which is the month of Thanksgiving, and I just want to everybody to share one or two things that they're thankful for. And well, for me, I'll start. So this month, I not only got to spend a week at NASA, but I did, let's see if I can move out of the way. I did win another hockey championship. I will bring the trophy closer so you can see better.
Good job.
So that's good. And I'm thankful for, of course, many other things.
I can go. Hey, everybody. Long time no see. I was, I don't know, did we lose? We lost Rocky. I had a joke for him too, and it goes along with my my thing that I'm thankful for. So yeah, you know, I'll just say that for me, the future of e-mobility is real simple, and it all comes down to the one-wheel electric skateboard. It's all we're gonna need.
So Phelps, if you want to be in a parade with your one wheel, the Asheville or the Land of Sky Clean Vehicles Coalition is going to have one wheels and segways along with an F-150 Lightning, a propane vehicle in our parade on the 19th. I'll send everybody an email so you can all be in the parade.
Yeah, send me. Is that, well, I think when is it? Is it in the morning?
It's November 19th, starting around 10, going till as late as 2, usually done earlier than that.
That might be perfect. Because I'm having Friendsgiving at 2 and then my brother's housewarming party at 5:30, so I could just make a day of it. Yeah, Rakesh, I was letting everyone know I got it all figured out. The future of e-mobility is it's the one-wheel electric skateboard, and that's also what I'm super grateful for in my life right now.
Great. Well, Micah, we just heard from you, but aside from being on the committee, what else are you thankful for?
I am thankful for Bent Creek Biking Trail. I just did a very intense mountain biking excursion this morning that I'm still getting over. And I moved here from Bentonville, working at Walmart, which is now a biking mecca. And so we were thinking we were going to be missing out on some amazing mountain biking, but Asheville has it going on. So very grateful for this weather and to get a good bike ride in before it's maybe going to snow next week. I don't know.
It will probably snow and be sunny, and this will be your life forever.
I love it. And I'm very grateful for the leaves changing. That was one of my first experiences here, and it was unbelievable. So
excellent. So Dave, what would you like to share?
Well, this is going to start out not sounding like something to be thankful for, but it is. Last Wednesday, we lost in my family the very last member of my mother's group of 14 cousins who grew up like siblings. And last Friday, I lost my last member of my dad's generation from his side of the family. And I am very grateful for the long lives that most of them got to live. and the incredible experiences they had and transmitted to my generation. So sounds sad and awful, but it's actually a really good thing.
Well, thank you. Michelle, I know you're just here, but we're sharing something we're thankful for.
I am really grateful for antibiotics at the moment. I have a sick kid, so sorry I was joining a little bit late. And the relative unavailability of amoxicillin, there are alternatives, and I'm very grateful for those alternatives at the moment.
Well, I hope your child gets well soon.
Thank you. Me too.
So, Rocky, would you like to share?
Something that I'm grateful for. I guess for the vaccines, to be honest with you. Yeah, I am strongly believe in medical intervention for our well-being, and I'm glad that for the most part, I'm able to lead a healthy, happy life due to the vaccines and things like that. So, yep. As I'm sick right now, that's that.
Thank you, Rocky. And Jason?
Hey, Dave, or hey, Keith and everybody. I'm Jason Walls. For those of you, I don't know everybody. I'm Jason Walls with Duke Energy. I'm thankful to be home. I went for 2.5 years without traveling, and I've literally traveled every single week since the middle of September. So I'm very thankful to be home for the next 3 weeks without any immediate plans to go anywhere. And this isn't fun travel. This isn't like, hey, I've been on vacation a long time. This is me going to Raleigh a lot. So it's been good.
And it does downgrade your environment when you have to go to, well, Raleigh or Charlotte or someplace that's not Asheville.
I was in
Though if
Boone-
you were going to the coast, we wouldn't feel too bad.
I was in Boone for one of the weeks. That was kind of fun.
Oh, cool. Well, so I would like to go ahead now and approve the October meeting minutes. I hope you all get a chance to review them. Is there any discussion about the meeting minutes? All right, can we have a motion to approve?
I'll move.
Thank you, Dave. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Great, thank you, Micah. All who approve, let's give a thumbs up in our reaction just so we can catch it on the video or on the screen, either way. All right. All who do not approve or say nay. All right, the minutes are approved. And I want to move on to just a quick review. I know that Michelle and Brad both got to attend the North Carolina Sustainable Energy Conference. And if you could share just a little bit about what you learned, what you saw, that would be great.
Yeah, it was a really nice opportunity to be together with some renewable energy wonks from around the state for the first time in person in several years. So that was wonderful. Some things that are on the horizon that I think, well, actually, first, we got a shout out, at least one. Jeremiah gave us a shout out, but that's, whatever. But someone unrelated to the Blue Horizons project was talking about the success of our Solarized Asheville Buncombe, specifically the Neighbor to Neighbor program, and how that could be a model for other cities to replicate, particularly for the equity piece of solar installations, and was talking about ways that it could be expanded on with financing, which relates to what another good takeaway I had was there is the creation of a green bank for the state of North Carolina in the works, as well as another kind of do-gooder green energy bank that is now working in Florida, but is also looking at projects in Atlanta and there are people from North Carolina in conversation about financing low-income solar in the eastern part of the state, and I think it's called SELF. So if we do another Solarize Asheville Buncombe program, and we're actually running with Neighbor to Neighbor with some grant funding right now. But if we ever wanted to look at people's ability to pay and actually make those grant dollars go a little further by asking people to chip in where they can, SELF might do some of the financing that we were unable to find, even looking at Self-Help Credit Union here locally. They just weren't set up to take on solar financing options. So the Green Bank or this other bank SELF may be alternatives in the near future. I have a couple other things, but I'll let, that's kind of a punctuation on that piece. So maybe, I also want to mention, Jackie Hamstead from Buncombe County was also there and may have some takeaways she cares to share.
Yeah, I thought we had a great crowd from Buncombe County, and the general impression is that there's a lot of money out there, that people are excited about the IRA and what's available, and everybody seems to be coming to a lot of the same conclusions. I also felt like that there's a lot that we can offer that is in the low income area, and heard a good talk from a panel that had the new head of the state energy office, Beth Schrader, on it. And I had a chance to just speak briefly with her afterwards, but I think that there's a lot of interest in changing and making the state government and all of this money, how it flows, a lot more effective. Whether they're able to achieve that or not is another whole question. But I thought it was a great conference. I was glad to see a lot of the people that I had met during the carbon plan hearings, and get a chance to reconnect briefly with some of those people. A lot of interesting talks.
Jackie, did you have any thoughts that you'd like to share?
Like Brad mentioned, there's a lot of talk about IRA that really dominated the conference, at least the sessions I were in. And some takeaways were, think big and partner up as much as you can to really kind of increase your capacity to spend a lot of money. Yeah.
Piggybacking on both of those, one of the IRA things that I think I typed in when I was just typing some notes to the group, partner up specifically to receive direct pay options. So nonprofit partners or any non-profit agencies, that could be the city, the county, it could be Mountain Housing Opportunities, it could be Greenbelt Alliance, could be receiving direct pay from IRA grants, or some conglomeration that we build to do some specific project. So there's a lot of opportunity there. And the other piece of funding that was mentioned to Brad, and Brad, feel free to jump in and add to that if you want at all, because we were both in conversation. I'm forgetting his name, the head of SACE, or the transit person at SACE. Well, they were talking about
Stan Cross.
Stan Cross is here. Steve
Yeah.
Smith is the head of SACE, but I don't think he was at the meeting.
I think it was Steve. So they were just talking about how there's a lot of funding dollars from already that the state is going to have to allocate, one to put, what we know about, which are these charging stations at certain intervals along every major highway in the state, but there's actually some money left over from that. And if we could think strategically about where those could be placed, that wouldn't just be along mile marker intervals, but might meet some of our county goals, might make sense in terms of equity issues, might make sense in terms of geography or topography, where there might just need to be more opportunities to charge. I'm thinking like maybe Black Mountain after you come up that huge hill on the 40 or something like that, that we should float those ideas forward, because they're looking for opportunities, particularly in creating opportunities in rural communities. So I think that looking at charging station placement and making recommendations might be something that the council should consider.
I had and just, I guess, related to the general insights or things that we might connect with, but person that was very involved in doing the Cadmus report and in working with us in the Energy Innovation Task Force was Jennifer Weiss, Jen Weiss, who I saw at the conference, was there for quite a bit. And she actually won the inaugural Women in Clean Energy Award, which is also called, I guess, the Weiss Award. So WICE. So Jen Weiss won the Weiss Award, which I thought was interesting. But she is the senior advisor in the Department of Transportation now on electrification or clean energy, senior climate advisor in the Department of Transportation. So she's a good contact, knows about what we're doing, was interested to kind of get an update from me on some of the things we're doing here, and is a good just person to remember that she seems to be an influential person in these circles, if you will.
Great. Well, thanks for that kind of summary. I did listen to some of the Inflation Reduction Act input sessions, and there was a lot of discussion about making sure that that it is easy for people of lower income to borrow money, or for organizations to borrow money for them to put rooftop solar on their house. There were several people who talked about that in the parts that I listened to. The other thing that I want to mention, this is from my day job. So there is still money available for type 2 charging stations, and it needs to be publicly available. I think that if it's a nonprofit, they'll pay for 100% of it. If it's a business, I think they'll pay for 80% of it. So if you know of any business and you think they need a type 2 charger at their business or nonprofit, well, just put them in touch with me and I'll get them in touch with the organization, because yeah, there's still money there and it's basically free money. Of course, it is no reimbursement system.
Is it available for government too?
Yeah.
So Buncombe County could put those somewhere?
They could. I'm pretty sure the government may have had a different pot of money, but now this money has not been used yet. They may be able to get that. And of course, I don't know if you've seen the results. Just last week, the department announced where we're going to put fast chargers across the state, and how that system is going to mesh with what you were talking about, Michelle, with the fast chargers, the NEVI fast chargers. They're putting one to make corridors so you can get across the state using these fast chargers. It's really exciting. I'll step back into the Blue Horizons Community Council.
I wonder if an Airbnb is a business. Is an Airbnb a business?
An Airbnb could do that. Or even an apartment unit. They're all will count. It has to be publicly available though. I mean, if it's not being used. So the Airbnb would have to be okay with having somebody not staying at the Airbnb using the charger. A lot of the DC fast chargers that we put in are at hotels, but that's one of those things that we're really clear about, that they need to allow people not staying at the hotel to use these chargers. And yeah,
They can charge for electricity though, right?
Yes, they can charge for the electricity, but they cannot. So they could give it to the people staying there for free and charge other people for it, but it still has to be available for everybody.
Keith, I'm not 100% sure that they can resell the electricity.
They charge for a charging.
Yeah,
they can't sell the electricity.
They would rent the space, I believe, is how people have been doing this.
But you're correct, Jason. They can't resell electricity. They can,
Well,
but they
Tesla
can-
does it all the time. I'm not sure I mean, how does Tesla do it in their, I mean, I just go up and it charges my credit card for how many kilowatt hours I use.
I don't know the answer to that.
Right, I don't know.
They're doing it all the time.
I don't have a Tesla, so I don't know, nor do I kind of manage that work at the company, so sorry.
There was a person there who was really a pretty exciting person. One of the speakers was on a panel was a high, some representative of ChargePoint. So they're pretty aggressive in getting out there with their network. And I know, from what I understood from what they were saying, that there were both charge and non-charge options in terms of the dollars.
So I would like to move on and turn the mic over to David to talk a little bit about the 100% renewable strategic planning subcommittee and the topic list. Just remind us how you came up with the list, and because I really want to spend a lot of time in this next part of the meeting trying to get people together to make ambitious plans to actually solve these 100% by 42 problems. So David, are you ready?
I'm ready. Yeah, thanks, Keith. So yeah, I guess to address your first question, how did we come up with these topics? So we kind of came up, we had sort of a running list of what might be some of the most potential programs, initiatives, projects that other regions around the country have had success with that have been trying to get to similar goals. So we looked all over the place, kind of had this big, long list, ended up kind of whittling that down based on what could actually be done here based on, legal requirements, et cetera. So we kept making the list smaller and smaller, and then put everything else left over into a big, long survey that we sent out to the strategic plan group, and kind of came up with some of the top winners from that, and refined it, tweaked it, made it look better, and sent it out to the larger group for you all to vote on what we think could potentially have the most impact, both to meet our energy requirements, our energy goals, and also to do so in an equitable way. And we kind of came up with this top 10, which ended up being 11. We were calling them initiatives, but really they're topics, because some of them have some subcategories with initiatives within them. And then also had underneath that an option for folks to fill in a blank of like, what are we missing? What are some gaps of areas that also should be addressed that is not on this list? So the resulting topics from that, I can share that with you all in a sec, but I'll keep telling you about it. It's sort of how we came up with this list of what we think might be a great way to move forward. And then that's sort of what, as you all spearhead the information and resource and data gathering on those topics. Those specific topics, we're still, it is that we have 10 or so, give or take a few, main topics. And within those, there's some subcategories of different initiatives that we'd like to look forward to and really dive deep into. And the analysis and the data that we're trying to get is looking at things like feasibility, both policy and legal, scalability, how much impact could this have, cost benefit analysis / impact. So really looking at like potential financial impacts, potential environmental impacts, the local impacts, and then really looking at equity. And those are all, just like they did in the CADMIS, because we want it to be sort of consistent, those are all pretty much going to be evaluated as like low, medium, high impacts, and or certain ones might be positive, neutral, or negative. And so that's kind of a very brief, not so brief, an overview of that process and the results that came from it. And like I said, we're still kind of tweaking those lists to try to make them even more refined and look a little bit better. But for the most part, we have some of the general ideas laid out so that we can start to move forward. So that kind of addresses that part of it. And then, Keith, did you want me to talk about some of the other things that we talked about in the meeting, or do you want to talk a little bit more about that specific piece of it all?
So let's focus on the list for right now. And we can talk about some of the other stuff later.
Let me pull that up and share it with folks then. Give me one sec.
I was just looking through the supporting documents folder for this meeting. Curious if this is already there.
I'm not sure if it is, but I just put a link to it in the chat. And
It was
So
linked
just
on
to-
the agenda.
Yeah.
okay, great. And just to kind of give everyone a little bit of context on what this list looks like. So we have, you'll see there's 10 main topics there. Some of them are already broken down into subcategories. And then you'll see afterwards a name or two or three. And those are the folks who signed up to kind of spearhead the data digging for that topic and kind of look into the analysis of it all. Some of them are folks
If you're
that
sharing, we can't
are
see
you all
it.
who have signed up? Oh, I'm not sharing. Would you like me to? I just put it
Yeah.
in the chat, but I'm happy to share. Okay, give me a sec. All right, can you see that now? Great. So, yeah, sort of what I was saying is there is, somebody's putting in a bunch of spaces. But yeah, you can see there's sort of a top 10 here with some subcategories broken out. And after each of those topics are names of folks who have either signed up for them to spearhead the analysis and looking at the data and the resources that might be needed. And if there wasn't anybody specifically that we felt like was really the expert or would want to jump in from our group, we talked about some other folks who we think might be good resources to reach out to, who could give us some good insight into those topics. So those are the ones that are in italics that you might see there. If we scroll down, you'll also see others, and these are ones that folks wrote into that other option in the survey of like, what are things that we might be missing that you all think are important. So that's sort of what's down here in the others list, stuff like Green Button Data Initiative, Commercial Energy Star benchmarking, and we might sort of incorporate those into other topics up above where, like I said, we're still kind of trying to tweak that and streamline it all a little bit. But for the most part, for those of you who have signed up for topics, it's still going to be generally the same thing you signed up for. We just might, like I said, tweak it a little bit, but also I think the tweaking might make a little bit more sense and be easier on your end. And then if you keep scrolling down, you'll see there's sort of the main analysis that I covered of the feasibility, scale, cost benefit analysis, and equity, and how those are going to be measured. But the other further analysis that we want to look at too is just looking at, you know, the other things that we think that we will need to know in order to actually implement these initiatives. So things like the timeline of the strategy. Are we looking at near term, medium term, long term, ongoing? Who exactly is going to be implementing these kinds of things? What sort of things do we need to, what sort of actions do we need to take to actually help make this happen? And like, what are the financial costs and or benefits? You know, sometimes things may have a cost, but overall, oftentimes have a huge financial benefit and can bring money as opposed to just being costs. And really, what else? What are we missing? What are some of the other resources that we might need to help make this happen? So that's kind of what we're looking at and what we've come up with so far. And again, this is sort of an evolving process that I think is going to be continued to be improved upon. But this is where we are right now. Any thoughts, questions, things folks want to share or add? All right, I'm going to stop sharing then. And
So I'd like to hone into one part of it because there are a couple of things on the list about transportation, and through past meetings, we're pretty clear that Greenbelt and Blue Horizons project really doesn't have the capacity, and they may not be the best place to focus on transportation. On the other side, we know that to reach our 2042 goal of 100% renewable energy, we've got to focus on transportation, especially if we want to reduce climate change. And I am going to try my best to share my screen. If I can find the, let's take me, I have two maps that I want to share. And one of them, I went to the French Broad River MPO meeting on how to get people out of cars. And at the beginning of their presentation, they shared one screen. Let's see, I'm going to share this. Now, if you look at this, they took the 5-county region and looked at, and the study was done, I think, in 2018, looking at growth and looking at transportation, how to address getting people out of cars. They called it something different, but, and if you look at this map, you can see the pale green areas. Those are the places where people can potentially do most of their life by walking. You've got the brown areas, which currently people generally need to drive to get the things they need to live. And then you've got the rural areas. I'm going to stop sharing this map. I'll give you like 10 seconds to memorize it. All right. And now I'm going to bring up a different map. This is the map that was in the paper this week. Now, I don't know how many of you saw this map, but this map shows in red the areas that are most likely to grow in the near future. And from memory, you can all see none of these areas where they are going to grow are walkable. And in fact, if there's growth in this area, we're going to have an incredible increase in vehicle miles travel and all of the negative things which come with that, air pollution, climate, all that. And even if it's electrified, it's still going to make it more difficult to meet our goals. I'm going to stop sharing. So when I look at how to get people out of cars or how to get people into electric vehicles or increase the, hold on, I'm distracted. So the EV infrastructure, public transit, getting people out of cars, all those things are things which are connected to what we want to do. And after that meeting, I had a conversation with Tristan Winkler, maybe? I've forgotten his last name. So Tristan, and he said that he feels like he needs help to do this, to get a group of people together. And we certainly have the expertise on our committee here to help in that conversation, which is why I put my name on those different particular things, because there are lots of players in this. There's the city, there's the county, there's the MPO, potentially us, there's the local air quality agency. But as far as we know, and this is Tristan and I and some other people on the committee, we're not talking as a group. And it may take an action, kind of like the Energy Innovation Task Force, to start accomplishing all these things. And well, in a past life, I was a transportation planner, so I worked with DOT, and I understand how they make their decisions. So I'm perfectly willing to try to get this group together from Blue Horizons and get it together with Tristan, see who we can get to start having these discussions, and see where we can go with that. On an aside, which they the MPO wanted to report these topics. They wanted to talk to the Buncombe County long range plan people, just as we put ourselves out there to say, yeah, we want to talk to you and share what we know. They did the same thing, and they got the same response we did. They're not ready for that information and engagement yet. Conversely, the map of the growth that was actually presented to Buncombe County commissioners last week, the week before. And I think that's important to know about that, or for them to know about that.
And wasn't
So
it
that's
from the
kind
MSD? It was from the MSD, right? Like the MSD was showing like where they might run sewer and how much it was going to cost.
exactly. They were talking about their budgets for the long term. If the building was, yeah.
I'm super fascinated in that. I live in that big bottom one, the red one around Cane Creek, you know, and I mean, you're totally right. There's no walkability there. And to me, what would make sense to me would be like, if you could have little downtown areas, like if we could have a downtown Cane Creek, you know, like that, then we could have our own little community, you know. I mean, me and my wife have a dream of like buying some property on the road where we could like put in a, you know, a brewery or something. But you know, like, but I mean, the point is like, but that property is all owned by like families that are never going to sell it. So it's like, what are you gonna, you know, like how do you like create space to have like an urban center?
Well, I also looked at that area because I know the Cane Creek area fairly well. And yeah, there are these huge tracts of land with horse farms and stuff like that. But to go back to this story that, and not to get all anecdotal, if you will. So
No,
I was working
please.
for 4-H in Wake County, which is where Raleigh is, in 1993. And our agriculture agency said, well, you can't work for 4-H without planting tobacco. So we went to this farmer who was planting tobacco like 2 miles from my house. And I spent the day being really, really bad at planting tobacco. Came back with scratches over all of my body and everything. And so I was talking to the farmer, and he's like, well, you did a good job, but nowhere near as anybody I'd ever hire. So it's a good thing you're smart. So I asked him how long he owned this, and this is family land, forever land. So the 4-H agent said, well, what it'll take you to sell for this? And I'm like, it's like, I can never sell this land. This is my land. Within 3 years, after visiting him, a real estate agent convinced him to sell all that land because he gave him so much money. And now it's Cary inside Apex. I mean, condos and everything. You can't see there's ever a farm there. That's what's going to happen on Cane Creek Road, because somebody's going to come on and offer them so much money. And, you know, so that's kind of the crisis.
It's going to be good for my property values when they do, but I don't see the Taylors selling out in my lifetime. But but no, but that is an interesting. I mean, I think it is a fascinating idea. You know, that's all I know.
I mean, isn't this why we have the bond issue that we're voting on today? I mean, to at least preserve some of the land, because you know, ultimately, Buncombe County is going to be like Wake County. I mean, and with climate refugees, I mean, we're going to be swarming with them out of Florida and other places. And, you know, a lot of people don't want to be in dense urban. I mean, it's part of it is a matter of changing behavior among the public, because there's a certain part of the public that wants to live in, you know, on a 2-acre lot in the middle of the country. And because, you know, we're also building, you know, about what, 300 micro housing units right in downtown Asheville, between 200 and 350 square feet a unit.
And in the further on in the meeting, that is actually what they talked about. That's one of the key factors to solving this is having small places like these micro housing units. That's one of the big parts of the solution. But another big part of it is transportation planning, and not I guess from the how to get people out of cars, I guess I'd like permission to kind of lead up and start having that conversation with the MPO, going and talking to them from Blue Horizons project, understanding this is not in the core of what the Blue Horizons project does, but we are a good group of people with lots of knowledge, and we're in general really smart. Not me, but everybody else. So, and this, in order to focus on these different things, the transit, the getting people out of cars, those parts of it. And that's what I'd like to start having these conversations. And I would certainly like your help if that's an area that you're interested in.
Keith, I'd like to throw an aggressively negative comment into this discussion. I think it's a serious challenge that probably half the people that work for the MPO live 30 miles from Asheville and commute into town. That's not a trivial problem in changing minds. And the second one is that for every person that wants to live on a 2-acre lot, some of them want to live in that lot at the corner of Chestnut and Charlotte Street. You know, the uproar over density in a spot that was 3 blocks, that is 3 blocks from an interstate highway and right on the edge of downtown, is just the tip of the iceberg in terms of how people resist density. I've lived in 14 cities in 8 different states, and it's been true everywhere. People fight density like their life depends on it. And they use bogus arguments about both traffic congestion and environmental stuff to fight it. So, you know, it's not a trivial problem here. And I mean to be aggressively negative with that comment. I'm losing a lot of my faith in humanity, to tell the truth.
So, Dave, that's why I want you on my committee.
I'll be on it, but I mean, I'm going to piss some people off.
So I make a motion to create a committee to talk about regional transit planning, and I nominate Keith to be the chair. Can I have a second?
I'll second that and volunteer for that committee.
It's a reduced vehicle miles traveled committee. Isn't that what we decided?
Yes, it is.
So it's not just, I mean, there's vehicle miles traveled also in dense areas.
I think the committee needs to talk about that. I'll happy to join and have the conversation. I think you need to think about integrated transit planning. So electric vehicles, transit, like you can reduce. Yeah. So transit oriented development is what Rocky is recommending.
Yeah.
Just a keyword that people throw, but in urban planning and other things. But yeah, the urban planning and transportation planning should go hand in hand, right? Because Keith was talking about how he has worked on this. So you figure out where is your demand and supply, or origin destination, I'm sorry, OD pairs, as they say, and then you come up with all this optimization to do that. But yeah, so there's a lot of things here. I mean, I'm happy to support, but I built transportation demand models in the past, but don't have experience with that recently, in the recent past.
Yeah, and I'll second that comment, because really when you look at it, it's the development pattern that makes a lot more difference than the transit does. Transit in and of itself actually makes your environmental situation worse. But it's the development pattern that you can get out of it that makes it better.
Yeah. So we'll do that. And I want to look
Can I
at this
also-
list. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, can I throw in there too, that at least in the strategic plan committee and in the tech committee, and outside of that as well, we've had conversations about just Green Belt Alliance and Blue Horizons projects capacity in general, and so have talked about trying to partner with other organizations who also focus on this. So just throwing it out there that it may also be worth trying to bring in, folks like Land of Sky and those kinds of folks who focus on this stuff on a day-to-day.
Right. And the list in my brain also includes Stan Cross, whom you all spoke about earlier with SACE. So I'm happy about that, even though it's more work for me. So I want to look at this list and see if we can come up with different groups that can kind of move these issues forward. And it's not, as Dave said so aggressively but eloquently, it's not necessarily going to be easy. And of course, I came to this meeting prepared to ask that. I'm not asking anybody to make that sort of commitment at this point in time, but I want to start thinking about how we can use our skills and expertise to help move forward. And I think this list is a really good framework which we can do that with.
Please let me know if you want me to share my screen with that list again.
Yeah, sure, that'd be good. As you look over the list, just think about, how we can
All
make
right,
these
definitely.
connections and how we can help move forward.
If anyone does need to look at the list after the meeting, I added it to the supporting docs folder and it's linked in the minutes.
Thank you, Summer. Well, unless there's more discussion this time, and we can move on to the next agenda item, which building efficiency and an update on the Inflation Reduction Act, which I've been getting lots of emails about. In fact, I just got one today, which is really much more specific than anything that I've seen before, but it has lists 7 pages long, just focusing on air pollution and climate. And I will share that soon, but everything like clean air grants of $25 million that will fund local and state organizations to deliver cleaning air through programs.
Application process. And that'll kind of give us details about how and when to apply, what kind of information is needed, what kind of budgets, et cetera. So yeah, so we're waiting and watching and anticipating applying once the application process is up and running. And it seems like a lot of the money is going to flow from the EPA, perhaps into state and local governments as well. And there might be some direct grants too. So, you know, it's just a matter of time to see how they'll distribute the funds.
So Micah, did you work with Michael Regan when you were at Environmental Defense?
I did, yes. He is a mentor and a friend.
Well, that's good. Yeah, I got to work with him because he used to be the secretary of my department, but I've really enjoyed working with him when I did.
Yeah, he was the head of our North Carolina office for a while at EDF and just so involved, obviously, on in governmental positions here. But yes, if any, I mean, I don't try to tap into that resource very often, but if the council ever needed it, we could at some point.
Wonderful, thank you.
My picture used to be on his wall of his office in Raleigh. It wasn't just my picture, he was in it too. We were at Purchase Knob and it was in the background. But anyway, I was kind of proud of that. All right. So do we want to talk? It says discussion of transportation with David, but we kind of talked about that. So unless there's something else that you wanted to bring up, David? Okay.
No, not necessarily, but I'll sort of defer to Sam on that. If Sam wants to more.
I feel like it would be good. I understand there was even a motion on the table to potentially do a transportation committee, and I'm open to that. Of course, y'all are leading this process, and I would wonder if there's a way in which we can get somebody from the MPO or Land and Sky Clean Vehicles Coalition to start attending these meetings, or someone from BHPCC to start attending their meetings. So there's some cross-referencing of information, because I was just on the MPO site. You know, they have 5 staff working on transportation planning. And that's kind of the city of Asheville is directing their transportation planning to the MPO. The city also does have a multimodal transportation plan that they're putting some resources behind. And, you know, because transportation is such a big initiative, working with these groups that already exist would seem like a very helpful thing in terms of plugging into their process and making sure they're aware of us. And maybe, I think, Keith, because you're kind of the bridge builder between these two groups, I imagine they already know about the BHPCC, but curious what your thoughts are about us attending their meetings or they attending ours, and just in order to be able to build that bridge better.
So I think that's all good. I would like to get their participation more. I may or may not actually join their technical committee as the air quality specialist. I'm not sure if I will be able to do that, but that would be helpful for everybody, I think. But I have to have conversations with people whom I work for first. But yeah, I'm gonna, perhaps in a future meeting after I meet with Tristan, I might invite him to do a presentation at one of our meetings, just to kind of let everybody know where we're at. But yes, I want to use these groups as much as possible to bring the conversation forward. But thank you. Yeah.
I'm also going to drop into the chat. The MPO adopted a Metropolitan Transportation Plan in January of 2022. I suppose it's directing the next 25 years of transportation planning in the region. So this is the first time I've seen this. I haven't looked through it. I don't know how innovative and progressive it is. I don't know if they focus on infill and multimodal and density or not. But this, you know, if the city and the county are following this, and if the county is also utilizing some of this information for their comp plan, some of the ink on this might be sort of dry. So we need to, I think, get more. This is one of these situations where, you know, GBA, we have our focus on buildings and we really do that well. And this is like one of these mission creeps things that can happen so easily for us. Is like, oh, let's go over here. And so I just want to make sure that maybe someone on this committee, if anyone feels like reading this plan and giving a report back to us about this and how it influences the 100% renewables plan or the development of that plan, that'd be helpful.
Great, thank you. Any questions from anybody? Thoughts? All right, next is Michelle with how to engage business and community. Just a discussion.
Thanks, Keith. Yeah, this kind of is really open conversation around, you know, again, you know, coming off of the conversation about transit and scope creep and Greenbelt staff and what the council can do to kind of start to make inroads in the business community, where I know Greenbelt staff have really been focused on residential development and maybe some larger scale housing development, but not really business. And part of me was thinking that even just starting to develop a list of interested large business, whether they're hoteliers or, you know, families that own a few different properties, maybe a diversity of businesses in town, starting to develop a list of people who are aware of the Greenbelt, are aware of the Blue Horizons mission and would be willing to engage with us, kind of just a very entry level point. I'm not sure what services we could offer those people. It might be as simple as conversations, you know, at an event, just to kind of get the ball rolling and get a temperature of where people are. And it could be as tangible as I think Dave's idea, Dave Gordon has in the strategic plan of doing kind of like some sort of recognizable kind of emblem that businesses can put up in their windows, or people could volunteer to do building audits. You know, I think anybody over time who we work with long-term, there could be opportunities for cross promotion, you know, and that's always a good incentive for businesses. So that's really big picture. I don't have a specific plan here. I kind of wanted to ask, like, I am not a person who is an expert in sustainability or corporate sustainability even, you know, I'm kind of a novice in it. So, you know, what with our collective knowledge could we even offer businesses in Asheville that were interested in engaging with the Blue Horizons project and maybe being, you know, model businesses for us? You know, what would it look like to even have a partnership or to have those people engage with us?
If I may, I could share a little bit about what we've done so far in the commercial space with BHP over the past 3 to 5 years. So in the Energy Innovation Task, if that's good with everybody.
Yeah.
Okay. So the Energy Innovation Task Force, as that emerged and the Blue Horizons Project was founded, there was someone that was on the EITF that was a leader at the Chamber of Commerce. And we sat down with them and essentially said, okay, what are the region's largest employers? And can we get a list of companies that are potentially sustainability oriented and also have a large workforce and, you know, have some economic clout in the region? And so we got a list of maybe 12 to 15 different companies. And we basically went through that and called each one of those companies. And I did some of that, and Robert Sipes, when he was at Duke, also did some of that. Maybe Jason might have helped with that as well. And we basically went through each one of those companies saying, hey, we're here to offer energy efficiency services and help you green your business, et cetera. And we essentially got no response. So that was kind of disappointing. And Then we said, okay, we're gonna, as part of our contract, we're just gonna be available to start reaching out to businesses to offer them, to show them that Atlanta Sky Waste Reduction Partners does free energy efficiency upgrades and audits, and also Lime Energy and Duke Energy, and promoting Duke's programs and the ones that already exist here. And we held some workshops in collaboration with Duke staff, doing energy efficiency upgrades, and we had some participation on that from some breweries and some restaurants. We also connected with the Asheville Restaurant Association. And this was another situation where a few entities said, okay, we like what you're doing. What's next? And then we pass them on to Lime Energy or the Waste Reduction Partners to do their free energy efficiency upgrades. And so we've been sort of that connector resource for folks. And that's basically what all we've done. And this past year, we actually pulled commercial energy efficiency out of our contract with the city and the county based on the very low response rate from commercial businesses. Now, it's a huge area and it's a big opportunity. So there may be just things we haven't thought about or done yet that need to be pursued, and I'm totally willing and open to, would love to actually be able to make an influence on that sector. We just have tried and haven't had much traction in those groups so far.
Yeah, just being in communications. I mean, if there's a way for good branding, marketing opportunities to be a part of an event, or an affiliate on a website that's third-party validator. I mean, I think that is one way that'll perk up a business area about getting involved, just some sort of positive brand image from being involved. So the more we can do on that, the better. But I've been in Nashville for about 1.5 years, and I've been to a couple of events that are environmentally related, but I haven't really, coming from Austin, I feel like there was a Clean Techs event like every month, and businesses were pretty involved. There was an Austin Renewable Energy Association, a Texas Renewable Energy, and it was all were pretty involved groups. So maybe convening some partners and events throughout the year could be really valuable. But, workshop included, but also just like some fun and getting together a little lighter maybe.
Really like that idea. The Collider used to do a lunch and learn series for their folks, and their folks were adaptation people though, but kind of that thing where it's social, it's hobnobbing, it's also you're getting some thing from it, from a panel of experts or one particular speaker who's really helpful, or a resource to these people who would have to be done really strategically, right? Like you don't want to waste people's time. You can't waste people's time. These connections would be really important. But I do think, to Sam's point, if you don't have relationships that you're cultivating, they don't answer the phone. So we have to kind of think about this inroad, right? And I wonder what the council can be doing. Again, I know Sam, you noted you took it out of your contract because it didn't seem like you could do something meaningful, but how do we prime the pump so it will be meaningful in 5-10 years when we really need these people invested in this program, right?
If I could just make a comment on that the Collider, or at least Case Consultants at the Collider, is doing a weekly coffee at the Collider that they do on their own, but there's certainly an ability, and I'm actually speaking on the carbon plan on Thursday at that event, but they they're looking for speakers, and I think this group could decide that we want to help promote that and get with Case and be involved in it. I know a lot of our people in Sam and the staff has participated in those events quite often, but I think that's one avenue that they're trying to fulfill the original mission of the Collider.
What if we had like a talk that we could give that, like, anybody on the council could give, because one thing I've been feeling like we really struggle with is like, I think we got a great plan. I love like electrify everything. We got the numbers, but I don't think, like, to circle back to the beginning, I just don't think we've been like really thinking big. We're kind of doing like little stuff, and that's great, but that doesn't sell, and so like kind of this idea like I learned about visioning from this guy. He's got this Zingerman's Deli up in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and he wrote a book called The Lapsed Anarchist's Guide to Building a Great Business. And it's like, but like visioning is a common thing in business. It's like, hey, it's 2042, and like we did this thing, and like now, like we electrified everything, and we like doubled the size of the grid. So what does that look like? Like now everywhere there's a power pole, there's two. Now everywhere there was a line, there's two lines, like, but it's like, oh, when I was making my coffee this morning, it's like, wow, coffee smells so good because there's no, I'm just smelling coffee, I'm not smelling like diesel, and, I can hear the birds, and like, now I want to live in a dense urban area because it's like beautiful and it's quiet and like the roofs are alive, and like I don't think we've come up with a vision that we can sell, and I think that would be worth doing. And it kind of goes along with that idea of like, what if we had a presentation about who we are, and it's not like this is the numbers, it's like this is where we're going, come with me.
So I'm hearing we need a strong pitch, really strong pitch. And I'm hearing that we need co-branding and positive marketing, and a space where we can, if we're going to start asking people to partner with us, like how are we promoting our partners, and how can they utilize that strong brand that we've built to attach it to their business, and why is that a winning situation for them? So we really maybe need to take this back to the, I guess is the community engagement committee? Is that what we called it? Communications committee, community engagement committee. And with that, like those points to flesh out a little bit more. I still am thinking, I like the idea of doing panels, but I still don't know what we're offering, other than maybe that co-branding, which is important. But I want to think a little bit more about what actual like experts or services we can actually provide for those folks. So maybe we can bring that back. Dave Gordon, does this wrap into anything that you were thinking in the strategic plan with the building efficiency program? Is there something there that we should highlight?
Yes, sort of. I was actually going to add, let me just add a couple other, my 2 cents about what we've been talking about. And correct me if I'm wrong here, Sam, but I feel like part of the difficulty with engaging businesses is that it has seemed like businesses cover such a broad spectrum, and each has their own sort of specialty, that sometimes it's hard to really focus in on, well, you guys are doing this kind of stuff way over here, which is completely different than what this other business is doing. So I guess maybe it sort of comes back to like what you were saying, Michelle, like what can we offer that might be applicable to all, or at least many or most businesses, or maybe even trying to break it down and having like different sectors. And I know, Keith, you at least were mentioned in one of the meetings, there was going to be a program partnering with some of the local breweries about what they can do. So I wonder if trying to find specifics within certain industries would be beneficial as well. But back to your last question, Michelle, one of the things, I think that there's a few different things that this could tie into for the strategic plan. The first one that jumps to mind is just the Better Buildings Challenge, which is sort of a voluntary thing that businesses can take on to be more efficient in general. And Keith, I know you said that you had volunteered for that topic as well. So maybe you would be able to speak to it a little bit more. And then I would also just say, maybe also coming at the businesses from the EV infrastructure standpoint as well, trying to incorporate that into it. Those are the top two that come to mind, but I'm open to any other thoughts that people have that would be connections.
So one thing we've been talking about in the community engagement committee is perhaps some sort of badging, kind of like the living wage badging or something like that, that we could be involved in. And that's really an outward thing. And of course, with the building committee, I did put my hand on that or my name on that, because running contests like that's one of my skill sets. But I want to go a step back. I would like, and I know that that Jamie's not here and he's been chairing the tech committee, but I would like the tech committee to have a discussion about this, have a discussion about what we can offer businesses and kind of what the businesses, you know, from that visioning statement, pie in the sky visioning statement, what, given what we know now, what we're hoping to have happen in the next 20 years or whatever, have them look at what's technically possible that can help businesses, not only help them electrify, help them be more energy efficient, but also to save money. And I know there's several of you here from the tech committee. So can you do that in your next meeting? Have a discussion about that? That'd be good.
Sounds like we could help businesses apply to have EV charging stations on site already. So that is, and I know we also know plenty of people in the solar industry. So those are things that are percolating for me. Like if we were going to have an event in early 2023, maybe that would even be what we offer.
And I think
if
the
it-
one, oh, sorry,
Go ahead.
Michelle.
Nope, go ahead.
Well, I was going to piggyback on your EV thing because, well, I was thinking about the one thing, maybe to add to Keith's list is it's not just saving money, but bringing in customers, right? Because it's like it's like this utopia that everyone wants to come downtown to their shop or whatever. Like get them off the internet and get them out.
And I'll throw in too, just sort of jumping into what you both said. I guess tapping into that, EV infrastructure and putting in EV chargers, and sort of going back to partnering with Land of Sky. When I spoke with Sarah there, or when we spoke with Sarah there, she had mentioned that that's something they have experience with, is running a similar to a Better Buildings Challenge, but like an EV workplace charger, a voluntary, challenge, basically, to really encourage and increase workplace charging. And that can also probably tie into with the badging and all these other things, but they have done in the past. So that would probably be a good organization to partner their experience with it.
One other thing that just came off I was thinking about bike friendly EV charging, but also bike friendly employers. So having a shower and bike parking is maybe another thing to add to the list. Maybe we have to create a list of like the things for businesses, and then we can figure out how to roll it out. I will create a Google document, and I'll share that around with some of my notes.
Oh, I just say that like large businesses, let's say like Ingalls or Mission Hospitals, places like that, and looking at doing comprehensive energy efficiency retrofits and solar energy systems, it's like how to get into those folks is a little bit of an enigma. However, like each one of those large businesses has Duke Energy representatives that are there to serve them doing energy efficiency retrofits, as long as they haven't opted out of that, because there are incentive money. So being able to work with, we have had some success working with some Duke Energy account reps to connect with some businesses. But I keep thinking about like, yeah, large folks that are on the hotels and Ingalls and Mission and, you know, this large energy consumers in the area that really need support making the changes to electrify everything and to, you know, put renewables on their buildings.
I did meet the guy from Sierra Nevada who runs all of their utility stuff. So not the beer making, but like all the other utility stuff. And they have like, he's willing to help basically with the Brewers Association and anybody who wants. So there are those types of people out there who are super into our mission. I think we just have to find and create a space for them. Cool. Good conversation. Any other thoughts? And then I'll turn it back to Keith.
I think just part of the document, if we could add just doing some research on what's already available, how we might be able to partner with folks that are already doing that. So that we're not reinventing the wheel and that we're just getting more folks together and using what they already have. Because I know like Sierra Nevada, for instance, comes to mind, like they already have a brewers group, and if we can tap into that, that'd be great. Just one note on what Phelps was saying, yes, is just about the vision, and we find that a lot in like I've been working on climate change for 15 years, but did a really bad job of describing what a clean energy future looks like, and just assuming that everybody thinks that's a good thing and assuming that everybody knows what that means. And like, you know, when I hear electrify everything, it's a little scary. I've been working on the grid for 10, 15 years, and I know it's still very dirty. And so electrify everything to me is scary because that means we might be plugging into coal. So that was I just wanted to make that note, is like electrify everything on a smart grid, on a green grid, because if we start electrifying everything before we, you know, have a resilient green grid, then we're going to be in trouble. So I think that's one thing that just to be mindful as a group is that we're also pressing hard on grid efficiency and things of that nature.
So back in 2012, I think we had the first Nissan Leaf at a booth at Belshare, and we had a group of people chanting, pointing at the Nissan Leaf, yelling, "That car runs on coal." You know, to that point, we have to be aware that our vision of a future is using a green grid. Yeah. And how to communicate that quickly and easily.
But Keith, we need to go one step further than that. We need to have people understand that with the present grid, electrifying vehicles is a significant win. It is a huge win without any change to the present grid. You do not need to put the solar on your roof first before you buy the EV to make a positive difference.
Yes. Thank you for mentioning that.
And just to add, I mean, the North Carolina law mandates that Duke green the grid by 2050. Now, not under our definition, because we don't, our renewable energy goal doesn't consider nuclear to be green, but it's carbon-free grid.
Okay.
And they're moving in that direction.
Yep. All right, let's move on to the subcommittees. Technology subcommittee. We have to do this shorter than we normally do. We've got 30 minutes left. So,
so this is Rick. I'd like to do this because I really think this segues into so many of what has just been said here. I want you all to be aware that we're in, what on earth is that?
Wrong thing. There you go.
Oh, okay. I want you all to be aware that we are in fact developing an interactive decision-making tool for, really applies to everything, but you know, this particular demonstration right here is focused on campus level building energy decarbonization. And so this is a project we've been doing at MIT for a while. And we finally gotten the skill set ourselves. A lot of people have done this stuff, but we hadn't. And so I finally got our skill set ourselves, and we're doing right now, we're developing this both for this big project having to do with eliminating fossil use in building clusters. It applies to individual buildings just as well, as you can see it right here, one building. But we're applying this technology also, we're going to quickly advance a spreadsheet that we've worked on in the tech committee to be able to be ready beginning of the year for heat pump hot water heater project, hopefully by Blue Horizons, and hopefully working on a bulk purchase for that. We've got some fingers out a couple of distributors here locally, seeing what if we start off, for example, with say 250, a commitment for 250 units, which I'm 1000% confident we could get out there in a solarized like system. How would we go about that? So we're getting quotes on that, getting the distributors like Hajoka up to speed on that, and Jamie's in that loop, Jamie and Dave, and whatnot. So anyway, I just want to throw this on the screen just to kind of give you the idea, because so much of what you've just said about talking to buildings and stuff and in businesses, this tool will provide that kind of bridge. It's meant to be a decarbonization simulator specifically. So, and people will be able to, I'm going to say by like mid-spring, people will be able to put in their monthly bills, and it will extrapolate that to the kind of level of knowledge we need to do this kind of analysis and be able to give people like, okay, if I do this, what will this do for my carbon footprint? What kind of difference will it make? Can I make these plans like in this year I can do this, in 5 years I do this, what does that look like? So this is a what if planning tool for decarbonizing any building or cluster buildings in particular. And we're going to apply the same thing to the heat pump water heater. Is going to give customers some kind of a fancy color. You can see we're experimenting with different colors and whatnot. The point is to come up with something that humans can interact with. And the basic theme here is inroads. So this is an inroads style, single page interactive simulator. And so that's all I've got from the tech committee in general, but we're working on that. We're working on a heat pump water heater project, which I'm really hoping this committee will end up backing, and we could get something going. And I heard something else along the line, something Sam said, I think along the lines of that about, how do you get the funding for staff and all like that? Well, there's a project, Solarize paid somebody, there was money in that paid for the running of the project. So running a project like this, I think it could self-fund, it could be a good thing. It could actually create the staff time needed to run it on the heat pump water heaters in particular. We'll have to see where this goes. I think this could be, I heard you guys saying things along the lines of what could we do, really walk in and help businesses. This could do that, but let's get there, the capability, the power, the knowledge, the approach is all here. It's a work in process.
Hey, Rick, just a couple quick clarifying questions about that. You mentioned that this was originally set up for a campus, but that it also can be applied to any building or cluster of buildings. So this could be applied to anybody's house, and or is it specifically, are the numbers calibrated to be specific to our region based on our electricity usage?
Oh, no, it's all 100% flexible. This is a tool to change the planet. This is a tool to achieve building decarbonization. Acceleration, massive acceleration by 2030. I mean, this is, to be blunt, this is a completely unfunded development that we're under. And after meetings we just had this morning with guys who are out west working with NREL and everything, the reality is that we're at the forefront of this. There might be 3-4 people across the country working on this kind of stuff for some crazy reason, but we can't find any funding for it. So we're just hanging it out there and doing it. We're doing it. Thankfully, MIT is funding us and students internally. Of course, we've got staff and all kinds of the building systems engineering group is now on board. Finally, 6 years after we proposed this. And so, this will serve anything. This will serve any building from a house to a campus. That's the point. It's gonna be map-based, input's all map-based selection, right out of Google Maps. And so locale-based, and locale has to do with wonderfully, the weather service has set up that I've been wondering how, how they have weather for Weaverville and all this stuff. Well, it turns out any Joe Blow who has a weather station, there's an app. I can get the weather data from weather station everywhere. And that all calculates all this stuff. That calculates the air, the geo, the efficiencies, everything.
Great, thanks, Rick. That's pretty exciting. Summer, would you like to comment on Community Engagement Committee?
Yeah, so we had our second meeting last month, and what we are doing out of that is creating a list of residential and potential partner organizations that we are not reaching right now. So basically, we've done a great job of reaching Asheville. Now, how do we reach the non-urban areas of Buncombe County? So we're creating a really specific list right now so that over the next coming months, we can figure out where to focus our efforts. So that's about it right now. We'll probably have it ready next month, and we can share it with the full council and get feedback on that too.
Great, thank you. Fundraising with Sam.
I was saying, we got some good news last week that the Condito Fund is going to give us another round of funding that will support the 100% renewable strategic planning process. So yeah, they've been funding us now for 5 years, and they're kind of in the last year of their funding cycles. So yeah, we basically needed some additional funding, and that's a group from Atlanta that supports sustainability efforts in the Southeast. And so that's exciting news. And then of course we have the ARPA funding from the city and the county with the American Rescue Plan funding, which is paying for heat pump repair and replacement for low-income families, and also our neighbor solar energy program. We're going to be doing 16 projects with Sugar Hollow Solar in the next couple of years through that funding. And then we're going to be doing an end of the year fundraising campaign for asking for donors throughout the county and the city to support Energy Savers Network and Blue Horizons Project. So if any of you feel so inspired to support this work financially, you can do so by going to the greenbelt.org website. There's also a Give Local campaign now through Mountain Express, looking at it's a way to support all the different types of nonprofit organizations. So we're up on that too. And we have a meeting on Friday with a potential large donor to support our capacity building work. So what we see right now is we realize that if we're going to be able to take advantage of the Inflation Reduction Act funding, we're going to need to build some capacity internally to be able to utilize that funding. So we're in the process of looking to receive some additional funds, because we realize there's a lot of money coming from the IRA for specific equipment, solar, HVAC, weatherization work. But as an organization, you kind of need to set everything up to be able to utilize that funding the best way possible. So, yeah.
Just one thing to add, Sam. I think you told me that we had the last couple of weeks a pretty substantial individual donation that came sort of out of the blue. Person we didn't know.
$5,000 donation.
Does anybody know this person or it's just sort of tells you the power of the idea, and that from the website or from some communication that somebody just got wind of it and put a substantial amount of money into it who doesn't live here. So there's a lot of potential, I think, from people who can see the mission, especially as it affects the equity and low income aspect of what we're doing.
Yep.
Any questions for Sam? All right. Energy Savers Network, Sam or Summer?
Hey, Hannah gave me a couple updates for Energy Savers Network. One is they are on track to meet their quarterly goals. 2 HVAC projects have been completed, 1 repair and 1 heat pump installation. The ESN project manager, Kelvin, is working on his BPI certification, and he passed a test yesterday for that. So that's exciting. And then if you did not see, Hannah and ESN was on WLOS. I'm going to link that in the chat. If you didn't see the video, she ran around town to do a last minute interview with them and did a really good job. So that's all I've got. Not sure if Sam has
And-
extra stuff on ESN.
When you watch the WLOS, you'll see a person who's not named and doesn't speak, but he was the winner of our sort of most valuable volunteer award. Is that right? Luke Gelfond is there working on a door, which is what he loves to do. And he's, I think, what, 500 and some hours of volunteer time working with ESN over, he got, I know I saw y'all promoted him as getting that award. So
That was something like
That's
that.
great.
Let me see if I can find it.
Yes, I'll just
Yeah,
mention this.
500 hours.
I think it was program started, Brad and Alice started this program in 2015 or 2016 and started out as volunteers. And it's amazing how in the past 5-6 years, we've been able to weatherize over 850 homes and now have funding to home repair, heat pump repair and replacement, and solar for low-income families. So we really offer a comprehensive service to these families. And so we're hoping that this model will spread. And we also are hoping that some of this funding coming from the federal government will help keep supporting and growing these efforts.
And one thing as we get bigger, we're having discussions with community action opportunities about how to better coordinate the overall low income efforts in the community. But one thing we found out from community action opportunities is they do not do in their full home house retrofit. They do not have a program to offer heat pump water heaters at all. And so we can supplement. That's just something we could have a low income program focused on heat pump water heaters, and there's nobody else doing it other than the federal government.
So, Brad, when I went to NASA as part of the Earth to Sky Academy network, where we're setting up climate action groups around 10 national parks. And I'm working with the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. I talked about the Energy Savers Network a lot, and we're probably going to come to you and ask you to do a presentation to all 10 parks, because this is something that is really actionable. And so, yeah, we'll talk. But everybody had lots of it. They had lots of questions about it that I couldn't answer, but you can.
Be glad to.
All right, neighbor to neighbor.
Me again. The first 2 neighbor to neighbor solar installations were completed by Sugar Hollow Solar last week and the week before. So in a couple weeks, Jamie and I are going to follow up with the clients and ask them how the installations went, how they're liking their system, and try to use that for a press release. And these were funded by the Buncombe County Office of Sustainability. The next however many, 16 or so, will be from the ARPA funding. And Hannah and I are working on getting a list of potential clients to Sugar Hollow by the end of the year, so they can start installing more at the beginning of 2023.
I'm sure you guys have this on lock, but that's great that you're waiting until 2023, because I mean, somebody can get that direct pay tax credit. It seems like y'all ought to be able to get paid for doing that, get the 30% tax credit and do more jobs. So
We're not
I
sure
think
if
that,
it can, because it's federal funds paying for it.
oh, it's already federal funds paying for it. Yeah, you have to reduce the basis by the amount of the grant. So
Yeah. I'll just mention that too, that these two houses that were just done last week in Sugar Hollow were Habitat for Humanity houses. So, you know, it's really sweet collaboration with that nonprofit.
All right. So the next Blue Horizons Home Energy Chat, no update. All right, so we've worked our way through to public comment, and we are open to comments up to regarding what we've discussed, what we haven't discussed, what you'd like to discuss. So I open the mic.
I have a not public comment. I don't know. It's,
ahead.
I mean, I can do it as a public, but I just wanted to mention that we were planning to have a DEI training at this meeting. We were really excited when someone from the equity office of the city offered to do it for free. And that turned out that they actually are not allowed to do external trainings. So I just wanted to make a announcement about that, and also maybe a pitch for putting something, a budget request in for next year for being able to hire a facilitator, because you really do need a professional facilitator if you're going to open up that can of worms.
Thank you for filling us in on that progress.
And can I, this is actually this ties to what Michelle was just talking about. One other sort of update from the strategic plan meeting that we talked about and that we had a whole separate meeting about was just kind of how equity is addressed in the strategic plan and trying to make sure that we do focus on that. We don't want to be missing anything. And just a couple key takeaways of the work that has already been going on, such as the DEI training and working with the city and the county and things of that nature. There's also, and I know we talked about this sort of at the beginning of the year, about trying to get an facilitator to take a look at the strategic plan and kind of give insight and a little bit. So we're trying to bring that back in to help make that happen, applied to a grant to try to help fund that. We've also talked about trying to just kind of write it into the strategic plan of actions to be taken to really look at equity as sort of a main tenet. And the BHPCC in general. And the Climate Justice Initiative report that was created in 2018 as a result of a listening session and project that was done then, and sort of to use the report and look at the potential initiatives and projects that we are and how they can address some of the needs that were identified in that report. And there's a couple other small irons in the fire, but that's sort of some of the big stuff that I wanted to share.
Thank you. Any other comments or thoughts? Jason, did you fall asleep during the meeting? I know it was your 8th meeting of the day. I wouldn't blame you.
No, I've been quietly listening.
Michelle, did you want to give an update on the folks who have applied or the process for people joining, or is that not premature and even mentioning that?
No, it's not premature. It's premature to talk about the people, but not the process. So we have had a number of very exciting, I'm gonna turn on a light, sorry. Bad lighting in here. Oh, that didn't work. Anyway, we have a number of really wonderful applicants that have applied, more than we have spaces for. So we do have a competitive process. That's great. And we did get some relatively late in the process. So we've started interviews, but then weren't able to schedule them all before this meeting. So we will do something similar to what we did in our last meeting, where we will probably present the applicants, but then maybe go into closed session and ask members who are up for reappointment to not participate in that closed session, not to prevent the public from hearing our conversation, but I think it's important that there is the ability to speak kind of freely about the applicants and ask questions and to vote without not being recorded for that process. So we'll have the regular meeting and then we'll go into closed session and then we will vote on we will present a summary of the interviews along with the resumes and questionnaires from each candidate. And then we will go into closed session, discuss those and vote on being seated for the 2023 cycle. Any questions on that? Great.
You know, I just want to feel compelled to say this because a lot of you guys have not been involved in this for many years here. I just want to point out, if we could get Maggie Ullman on this board, it's not an opportunity to miss. The woman was clearly the leader of the pack, getting things done before Sam showed up. You know what I mean? So, you know, another one of those great leaders, you just gotta grab and take advantage of if you can, you know, and energy for sure. I'm sorry if I spoke out of turn on that. And I guess I would just like to throw on the table, since it hadn't come up, I really think you guys should think about, are you up for a bulk purchase thing? How would the tech committee go about communicating with you? What kind of parameters might be needed? Would you need it to be a solarized kind of thing handled by a contractor? How would you even go about considering that? Because it's absolutely realistic. Absolutely realistic with the tax credits that are on the table and the cost that we could get the bulk purchase. And we're going to need to like put our tabs on these units. These units are going to vaporize. And so if we're going to do it, we want to at least do something that, you know, in our minds, discussing this tech committee, it's about seeding the market. You know, it's not about us necessarily doing this forever, though I think a couple of years would probably be needed, a couple of rounds, but seeding the market, seeding the idea, because, you know, there's old school HVAC guys, don't just, oh, go do that new stuff. Well, guess what? Plumbers too. And you got to kind of lead. And so a couple rounds, 250 units at least, makes a lot of sense. And it's even something that could be done inside the organization, because if you don't change the energy source, you don't even have to get a permit. So just thoughts. I think you guys need to think about how would you even approach this thing?
Yeah, I guess I have a few questions, and I guess it's probably best for the tech committee, right? We'll kind of hash it out there and then move forward.
Yeah, I mean, that would be great. And if anyone else has any questions, maybe, you know, feed them to Sam so we can sort of try to plan it.
Do you know, is Trane, is that how you say it? TRANE, HVAC provider? They had a table at the NCSEA conference and I just walked up and was like, if we wanted to do a bulk purchase program, like what would they be like? And they, I had the guy's card, and then they also have preferred installers that they would have to work with in order for the warranties of the units to be, they would honor that. So if you want that card, you said local folks, which I think is great. So if you have a local contractor already going, but they would also use their contractor list. So I don't know if that would interfere with the way you're envisioning running the program. But anyway, I have the card if you want to.
That would be great. This is plumbing, not HVAC.
Oh, sorry. I thought it was.
Yeah.
Oh, hot water heaters, not HVAC units. Well, anyway, if you want to do a bulk purchase for heating systems, I have that guy.
All right, are there
Oh,
any additional?
Michelle, I did have a question for you, Michelle, about when, I promise I'm listening here. When are we voting on, I know I'm sad to be rotating off, but when are we voting on the new members?
At the December meeting.
So we are, okay, at the December meeting.
And in order to have a quorum, it'll be really important for all the members who are either not rotating off now or are rotating off and are not reapplying to attend and vote.
Right. Are you, I mean, I do want to, do I get to vote?
Yeah.
Are you going to send out a list of everybody beforehand?
Everyone who is a voting member in this.
Or not, or who know, like who we're going to be voting for?
I think we'll send out we'll send out a summary of their interview, their resume, and their questionnaire.
Okay, awesome.
Probably we'll send like a link to a Google folder. Does that work for everybody? Jason, I know sometimes that doesn't work for you, right?
It does not work for me. It never does, but I'll find a way to catch up. Rick's rolling his eyes. You can roll your eyes all you want. It just doesn't. It is what it is. Well, welcome to corporate America.
No,
I
I
feel like
know.
you-
It's
there's
just
a
like, you just have to get
personal-
around it by like using your phone or something, you know, it's like, yeah, we've run into this bunch of places.
Yeah, any Google thing that has been shared for the last year, I haven't seen any of it. Like the agenda today. I can't see any documents that's been shared by the Blue Horizons in the last 18 months.
So I guess you'll get an email with a bunch of PDFs attached.
Let's connect offline. There might be another way.
We're looking forward to it.
All right. Well, thank you for being here today. We have 4 minutes if anybody has some any additional questions, comments. Thank you for being here. I think it's been a productive meeting, and I look forward to seeing you next month, if not before. And if you want to be in a parade, I'm sending everybody an invitation. Thank you.
Thank you.